Mhm.
Hey everyone, so I hopped on here. I was trying to do the Riverside like we usually do and link it over to the live, but for some reason I'm having technical difficulties with Riverside. It kept kicking me out. So I'm going to unfortunately have to do my live here, and maybe I hope can transport the live video over to YouTube for those of you that cannot catch it right now. Um, so today what we're doing is it's going to look a little bit different. So it's going to be a solo podcast with just myself. And I'm going to be discussing a topic. I'm going to discuss Familiacide. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about a story that is really popular here in the county that I am from. So if you live in North Carolina in Stokes County, you probably have likely heard the story. But before I start, I just want to go ahead and let you guys know, as far as our disclaimer, the views and all of this podcast is solely of just the creator, the co-host, and any guests that we have, which we do not have any guests today. So the views are only solely on them. Viewer discretion and listener discretion is advised. So you may ask, what exactly is familiacide? Well, familiacide is a murder of multiple family members. Usually it includes one, a spouse, or an ex-spouse, or at least one or two of the children. And it is more common than you think. It's not as common as I would want to say that I probably thought it was, but it is fairly common. So in my research, what I have found is that between 2020 and now, there has been 227 cases of familiacide. And in Canada, it's been less than 4% of their murders. So Canada, it's very, very low. So basically, also, what is like the guidelines of familiacide? So that would be that it's often considered a private crime, but it's often committed by a male family member. Other more than a woman is usually as a male. Uh, Other perpetrators, well, not other perpetrators, but the perpetrator, usually after committing these crimes, he does unfortunately, or she, because it can be a she sometimes, unalives themselves. Um, and then separation or exchange meant from a spouse or this family member or whatever usually is what is the number one leading cause to this, is what I found. And so if only the parents are killed, it's considered parricide. But if the entire family is killed, it's considered family annihilation. Um, it's a type of domestic homicide. And so just some famous cases to tell you about that you would probably know before I go in and talk about my specific case would be Ronald DeFeo. So Ronald DeFeo Jr. back in November 13th, 1974, Amityville. I'm sure you all have heard of Amityville. He killed his father and mother and two brothers and two sisters. And then Lyle and Eric Menendez. Now that is not familiacide, that is just parricide. But that is another really big topic right now, is the Menendez brothers. Susan Smith back in South Carolina back in October 25th of 94, she drowned her two sons in a lake and then blamed it on a black hijacker. Obviously, there was no hijacker, but she did try and get away with that story. Then, a lot of you wrestling fans out there, Chris Benoit, he actually killed his wife and son before killing himself back. It's been from June 22nd through the 24th in 2007. Then the most recent one would be the Watts family. Chris Watts. He killed his pregnant wife and then their two little girls. And he is currently in prison, as many of you know. But today my story is going to be about a family back in 1929 that took place here in Germantown, North Carolina, in the county of Stokes. Many of you may have heard of the name of the family if you are from the area. So I'm going to talk about the Lawson Family Murders today. You also may be familiar with it if you watch Netflix's 28 Days In. They did feature the funeral home where the bodies were took, and it is also a museum up in Madison. It's called Madison Dry Goods. It's now a museum, and there is different artifacts that have been collected over the years of the Lawson family, and so you can go there and check it out. I really recommend you do, because there's lots of stuff in there that you can see, and you can just feel the sadness and all, by going in there, because it is a really, really sad story, but it also gives you more of, education on it as well. So, no, not November. I don't know why I said November. Back in December 2020, December 25th, 1929, in Germantown, North Carolina, sharecropper Charles Davison, or Charlie Lawson, murdered his wife and 6 of his 7 kids. There's been, different theories, and I'll get into that in a little while as to why he did this. So, just a little bit of a backstory, so you know a little bit about Charlie Lawson before we go straight into what he did. In 1911, Charlie and Fanny Mannering moved to the area. They got married, and they had 8 children. Now, the third born was William, but he died of illness in 1920. In 1918, following the move of his younger brothers, Marion and Elijah, to Germantown, the area, Lawson and his family also decided to move as well to the area. Like I said, they were tenant farmers, which means they were like sharecroppers. So basically, they worked on the farm, but they worked basically like for their stay. Well, Charlie was able to get up enough money and was able to buy his own farm for his family on Brook Cove Road. That was back in 1927. Now, remind you, I told you this took place in 1929. So it wasn't very long, obviously, after he bought this farm, that this tragedy is going to take place. So days prior, he took Fanny, who was 37 at the time, that was his wife, Arthur, his oldest son, which was 19, Marie was 17, Carrie 12, Maybelle 7, James 4, Raymond 2, and Mary Lou, the baby, was only 4 months old, to buy new clothes in Winston-Salem. Now, if you think about it, guys, being a sharecropper back in the day, even though they had just bought this farm, this was way above their means. So the sole fact that he took them to buy a bit out of the norm, because, like I said, they didn't have the money to do that. So taking them to do that is, a little odd. But I'm sure they thought, oh well, Dad just wants to do something nice for us. It's Christmas, So they went and had the family picture done, and then this was just like a few days before Christmas. So on Christmas Day, Charlie, he actually shot his daughters, Carrie and Maybelle, as they were heading out to their uncle's house, which was just like literally nearby. I mean, like they lived like practically right there on top of one another. But he waited for them in the tobacco barn until they got right there to it, and he shot them with a 12 gauge, and then he bludgeoned them. Then he went back to the porch where Fanny was, and he shot her. Then Marie obviously heard what was going on, and he shot her. The 2 younger boys, they went and hid, but this is how sick he was. He actually went and hunted them down and killed them, and then he killed the baby. And that's even sicker. But afterwards, he went to the woods, and he had paced for hours around a tree, because it was actually snowing, so there was snow on the ground, and you could see the footprints around and around and around the tree where he had paced. He eventually unalives himself, but he did write 2 notes. They didn't really make a lot of sense. One said the trouble will cause, and I forgot exactly what the other one said. I couldn't find that. And here's the thing. You're probably wondering, well, where's Arthur, right? Arthur's the oldest son. Well, Arthur, he actually sent him out to go run an errand to the local store to get some more ammo. Because, a lot of people, they'll go hunting Christmas morning. But here's my theory. I think he sent Arthur off because he knew that Arthur was a big boy. Arthur could probably stop him from doing what he had planned to do. But there are some theories about as to why Charlie did what he did. Because it's like, you just bought this farm. You have this beautiful family. You got this beautiful little baby. So why are you going to, kill your whole family? I mean, like, that don't make no sense. Well, prior to this, it had been a couple of years that he had received a head injury. And some of the family and friends theorized that it altered his mental state from the impact of this head injury. But however, when Charlie passed away, they actually sent his brain off to Johns Hopkins Hospital. And when Johns Hopkins looked at his brain, they found no abnormalities that would suggest that this was due to a brain injury. So that rules out that theory. Another theory was a mob hit. So back after everything happened, they did set up the house for you to come and see, which is very macabre. But it was said that John Dillinger come through. So, people were trying to then pin it on John Dillinger because obviously he was running down to Florida anyways. But they found that there was no connection to Charlie and the mob. I mean, he was a little old farmer, So that was ruled out. Well, then it was the stock market crash. But the thing is when they went to Charlie's body, in his pocket, he had $63. Okay, now $63 back then was quite a bit of money. So obviously it did not affect them. And they also had very nice furniture. One thing was a large wooden armoire, which is not something that you would expect somebody to have of his stature. So he wasn't poor, but they weren't rich either. They were making it. Another theory is that Marie, the oldest daughter, was pregnant. Pregnant by who, you may ask? Charlie. That's right, her father. So it was rumored that Fanny had confided in several family members prior to the murder that her daughter was pregnant by her husband. It was also rumored and confirmed by other family members in books that Marie had confided in some family members that yes, she was pregnant and it was her father. So people think, well, he obviously didn't want the secret to get out. So he decided to kill his whole family. But another thing that I found during research is that Dr. Helsebeck was actually wanting to put him in a mental institution. There was nothing really that you could really find as far as to why, the records that he would want to put him in the mental institution. But you got to think about it. Back then, people were put in mental institutions for many, many different things. I mean, it could be just because you talk too much or whatever, or you may have like a little weird quirk about you, or if you drank, they consider that a mental illness. So, I mean, things now that we are like, that's not a mental illness, like that's just somebody being quirky or whatever, or that's just somebody enjoying a drink here and there. They would put them in a mental facility. And one of the things that they did put people in for was incest. And so, obviously, you got to think about it. Those conditions were not good. People know that those conditions were not good. I mean, it's been a known fact. People actually go out and investigate them, and they are riddled with paranormal activity because of all the abuse and torture that went on there. So it's said to believe that he likely committed these crimes because he did not want to be separated from his family, but he also did not want to be an outcast either for what he'd done, but he also didn't want to be put in the institution. Which is, a very, very valid reason, but it's not a valid reason, in my opinion, to do what he did. So, let's see. Also, we have this man here by the name of Hill Hampton, who stated that he knew of serious problems within the family, but when they tried to speak to him for one of the books, he refused to comment on what those problems were. And majority of the family members are dead now that would have been alive back then. So it's really hard to say what really was going on within that family. So, also, Marion Lawson, which is the brother, which is who the kids were trying to go to next door, after this is all said and done, he sees a little money opportunity in it. And you got to realize, this did not just go across the news here in Stokes County, Germantown, Walnut Cove, Lawsonville, King, that area, maybe Winston, because obviously people knew him in Winston because he was a tobacco farmer. He took his tobacco to Winston. It went across the United States. It was in papers everywhere. Washington, New York, California, all over the United States. People knew about what this man had done. So, I guess he sits back and thinks, well, I can make me a little bit of money off of this. So he opens up the home as a museum on Brook Cove Road. He charges, I believe they said he charged a penny to go through. And Marie had baked a cake for Christmas, her famous raisin cake. And people actually began to go by and take raisins as a souvenir. So then they decided that they were going to put it in a case. And they kept that for many, many years. I don't know what really happened to it after that. I would assume probably nobody still has it. I would hope not. But many songs were made, including... No, it's actually a apartment complex.
Oh, for just regular people. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I was trying to get to apartment I or apartment 1, like, how do I dial that?
I don't know exactly, but you can leave it there. We're not allowed to let anybody in.
Yeah, no worries. I just can't leave it.
Okay. Okay. I apologize about that. Somebody's trying to find somebody that lives here. But anyways, many songs were made, including the murder of the Lawson family ballad, which was recorded by the Carolina Buddies for Columbia Records in 1930. Then there is PRX podcast that called Criminal, which featured the story as well. They also are buried in a family plot in a private family cemetery donated by the Browder family, which I know you can go during the day, but at night they don't want anybody there because there's been so many things that people have tried to do, as far as like people not being respectful when it comes to the paranormal aspect of this story, because there are well-known documented cases of paranormal activity surrounding this family. So if you do want to go and check out where they're at, please do it during the day and just be respectful, of course. I mean, you want to be respectful of anybody when you're visiting their gravesite. But the main tombstone, so it's a family plot. So they have the main tombstone that has, of course, Lawson on it. But then it has many different, like it has all the kids' names on it. And so they're all there together. And I know it's kind of like, well, why would you want to bury the father who killed, the whole family with the family? And I really don't know why. I haven't found any research on that. I haven't found any family members that really know why. But you would think he may, if nothing else, would just be off to the side, not in the same plot. The baby is also buried in Fanny's arms. So she doesn't have an actual plot herself. She's just in there with her mother. But on the tombstone, it features the symbol of a square and compass. So many people thought that Charlie was a Freemason, but actually he is actually in another group. It was known as the Junior Order of United American Mechanics, which they use a very similar symbol. Now, what the difference is, I'm not really sure, but apparently there is a bit of a difference. I do know that in my research, I did find that there was another order that was kind of close to the Masons, not the order that I just said that he was in, but it's close to them. And they actually, I know that they do allow women, but they also allow farmers and stuff like that. So, but I don't know, like I said, the difference. Couldn't find any difference on that. Now you may ask, well, what happened to Arthur? Because obviously Arthur was not killed. He sent him off. Sadly, Arthur lost his life in a tragic car wreck many years later in 1945. So it's almost kind of like the family was cursed in a sense, if you want to say, because even though, yes, he spared his life that day, he did not get to live out his whole life. He did get married, and he did have 4 children that he sadly left behind. But that is the story of the Lawsons. Now, I can tell you also as well that there are some instances of like legends, because I know I told you that there was paranormal activity that surrounds this family. So one legend is that if you go to the grave and you leave anything on Charlie's side of the grave, such as leaves, toys, pennies, whatever, when you come back, it'll be gone. Well, if you guys remember our good friends back that we interviewed, Stokes County Paranormal up in Danbury, they have debunked that. So that is not any validity. I do know that people go and leave pennies and toys and all for the kids. But to what they have found, it's still there. So if you guys, want to leave something in respect, please feel free to do so. Also, they said that a close family friend who worked a nearby farm back after the murders said that when you would go near the Lawson family barn, you could still hear Charlie humming. Now, this is just new evidence to them that they recently discovered and was told to them by a person touring their tour. So they basically covered the story. So there, of course, you had your actor of Charlie and Fanny and all the kids. And so I do remember when they did that. I remember once Kimberly told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that happening. And so basically, also, if you, like I said, if you watched 28 Days Haunted for Netflix, it was featured. I know you can, it's still available to be watched. I do know that they went back and filmed another episode, but unfortunately, Madison Dry Goods cannot release per Netflix. So just know that sometime it should be coming out. But, Jeremy had said that he felt that Charlie was influenced by a demon to do this, because that's what he picked up on. He was being affected. He actually had to go to the hospital, if you remember correctly, in the episode. However, my theory on it, and from my experience in dealing with Charlie and the family and being a medium and picking up on stuff, specifically from Maybelle herself, I don't feel that a demon influenced Charlie to do anything. I feel that Charlie was a very, very troubled man. What troubles he may have had, I don't know. But, back then life wasn't easy. And I feel that he was just such an evil, evil person, because there are documents and the man just barely nudged into him, and they said that he lost it. I mean, like, more than what somebody should. Like, I mean, like, going over the edge. Not like, oh, I'm sorry, man, didn't see you there. I'm sure that's probably what that guy said, but he just lost it, they said, and wanted to fight this guy. So obviously he wasn't a nice person. And so I feel that when he passed away, he knew what he did. He doesn't want to answer to it. And I just feel that you can morph into almost like a demon-like creature. Which, another thing to mention, a local councilwoman, she's also a hairdresser here in town, went to the grave. It was nighttime. Took a picture. And leaning on the tree, you can see a half man, half demon-like figure. I will try and find that to share with you guys, because I am going to share media down in the comments. Also, I'm going to try and export this video and then share media onto the YouTube as well. I hope I can. I'm sorry I had trouble with Riverside, so I had to wing it, because I know you guys were expecting this. So, that's just what I feel. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, probably has their own feelings about it, but Charlie is very manipulative. He picks on females. If you notice, like in 28 Days Haunted, he was really giving Brandy a hard time. He won't stand up to a male. He's a coward. And I mean no disrespect by that, like, to the family, if there's anybody that's descendants watching, but that's just the way that he's portrayed himself to not only myself, but to others as well in the past. So basically, that's what, they had said, that, he felt that he, demon made him do it. But that's just my view on it. I don't feel that that's, necessarily what happened. I just feel that he's kind of turned into one. you also can go up to Madison Dry Goods and see the kids. People see the kids all the time. I actually had an experience back in September. I went up there and I seen one of the kids duck behind a little like stand that had a comforter quilt like thing on it. And when I looked behind there, there was no kid. And so it was just quick. But that's not uncommon. That's like a very common thing. But they also do have other artifacts in there from when it was a funeral home. But also they let people bring in haunted objects. So they're picking up on. But mainly, of course, it was the Lawson family that did come through. Also, there has been people that back before the property was sold to a family out of state that has had, paranormal encounters. So that's why I wanted to do this story, because it does have the paranormal aspect, but also just doing strange. We do talk about strange things on here, unexplained stuff. So it's, a lot of different information. But I do appreciate all you that have joined for the story. That is all that I really have for today. If anybody is here watching live, if you have any questions, I know Slap was on here earlier. The thing I see, I still have one person watching. But if you guys have any questions about what I talked about, please comment below, and I will give it just a minute before I hop off of here. A lot of details within this, so I was trying to get through it for sure. Also, another legend was that I do know has been debunked is it used to be said that when you went, no matter what time of year it was, if you went to the grave site, there would be grass on the rest of the family's graves, but right there where Charlie is buried, there would be no grass. It would just be like dirt. But I was told that has been debunked, that if you actually go right now, there's grass and leaves. So a lot of this stuff has been debunked thanks to our good friends at Stokes County Paranormal Research. And of course, just other people curious about, what's going on with the story and paying their respects. But also, we do have some other paranormal teams. They may not be as big as Stokes County Paranormal, but we do have people that do go out and do this kind of stuff. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to the Graveyard Shift. Dalen Spratt, thank you for the shirt. It was a shirt for my birthday. Those of you that don't know, he has not been doing any PTOs lately, and I'm next. And he had actually scheduled twice and had to cancel. He had things come up. Plus, it fell during the paranormal craziness of October. So he sent me a shirt for my weight. So you guys support him. If you don't follow him already, please do. Unfortunately, these shirts have already been sold out. He only does t-shirt drops quarterly. And so these have already been done, but he does shirts every quarter. Also, we have shirts, Explain Strange shirts. If you are interested in those, please comment or send a message to our page, and we will get you hooked up with one of those. But as for bearing with us and not giving up on us as far as our technical difficulties. It's just something about the weather, like we have found, no matter who's doing it, it just seems to glitch out on us. So I appreciate you guys for joining. Those that couldn't join with us right now, I do hope you enjoy this. If you're watching later and you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I will be watching the comments, and I will be sure to answer those as soon as I see them. I'm going to gather my media files up, and I'm going to put them below as well. That way you can see the family, the farm, just, so you can know a little bit about them. That way I'm not just kind of blindsiding you with this. So appreciate you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And a little news flash just before I go. Sunday is actually my 30th birthday. I celebrated last weekend, but Sunday's my actual birthday. So that's what I plan on doing this weekend, is just spending time with my mom and celebrating my birthday. You only turn 30 once, right? So goodbye to the 20s.